Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the starship Valiant, watching the swirling blue and green planet below. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, but she knew better. The scars of the Zephyrian War still marked its surface. Invisible craters where cities once stood. Memorials where families used to live. 3 years had passed since the last Zephyrian ship retreated beyond the outer rim. 3 years since humanity claimed victory in the bloodiest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. 3 years since Sarah had led the final assault that broke the alien siege of Luna Colony. Yet here she was, still fighting a different kind of war. "Commander Chen, the Council is ready for you," announced Lieutenant Morrison, his voice careful and neutral. Sarah noticed how he avoided her eyes, the same way most people did these days. She couldn't blame him. Looking at her meant confronting something that made humans uncomfortable. Sarah walked through the corridors of the diplomatic vessel, her footsteps echoing in the polished halls. Crew members stepped aside as she passed, offering respectful nods but keeping their distance. She caught fragments of whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when she appeared. Is that really her? The one who saved us all? But she's not exactly. Shh, she'll hear you. The council chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, representatives from 12 worlds sat in a horseshoe formation, their faces a mixture of curiosity and unease. At the center sat Admiral Reeves, her former commanding officer, looking older than his 60 years. "Commander Chen," Admiral Reeves began, his voice formal, "thank you for accepting our invitation." Sarah took her position at the witness stand, her enhanced vision automatically analyzing each face in the room. Elevated heart rates all around. Micro-expressions of fear, fascination, and barely concealed disgust. She had learned to read these signs well over the past 3 years. "The purpose of this hearing," continued Counselor Martinez from New Geneva, "is to determine your status under the Post-War Classification Act. As you know, recent legislation requires all enhanced individuals to undergo evaluation for citizenship eligibility. Enhanced. Sarah almost smiled at the euphemism. They couldn't bring themselves to say what she really was anymore. "Let the record show," announced the clerk, "that the subject underwent extensive cybernetic enhancement during the war. Current human biological content 47%. Synthetic neural pathways 53%. Classification pending." The numbers hung in the air like an accusation. Sarah remembered when those same modifications had made her a hero. When desperate humanity had begged for volunteers to undergo the painful process that would give them the speed, strength, and tactical processing power needed to fight the Zephyrians on equal terms. "Commander," said Counselor Zhang from Mars Colony, "can you tell us about the Battle of Kepler Station?" Sarah's enhanced memory instantly accessed the files. Every detail remained crystal clear, preserved in her synthetic neural matrix with perfect fidelity. The Zephyrians had broken through our outer defenses. Their bioships were adapting to our weapons faster than we could modify them. Standard human reaction times weren't sufficient to track their movement patterns. "And your role?" "I led Strike Force Alpha in a direct assault on their command vessel. My enhanced reflexes allowed me to pilot through their defensive grid. My tactical processors calculated optimal attack vectors in real time. We destroyed their flagship and disrupted their hive mind coordination." "How many lives were lost in that operation?" 43 human casualties. Approximately 8,000 Zephyrian combatants eliminated. The council members shifted uncomfortably. These were the same people who had celebrated her victories, who had pinned medals on her chest and called her humanity's greatest hero. Now they looked at her like she was a weapon that had outlived its usefulness. "Commander," Counselor Patel from Europa spoke carefully, "during your service, did you ever disobey a direct order?" Sarah's processors analyzed the question. This was a trap. "Yes, can you elaborate?" "During the defense of New Tokyo, I was ordered to retreat when civilian evacuation was incomplete. I chose to hold position until all non-combatants were safe, even though this put your unit at extreme risk. The mission was to protect human life. I prioritized that objective." Admiral Reeves leaned forward. "Sarah, the question isn't about your heroism. No one doubts your service record. But the enhancements you've received, they've changed how you think, how you process information. The military psychologists believe your decision-making matrix may no longer align with human values." "I saved New Tokyo," Sarah replied quietly. You also calculated the acceptable loss ratio for civilian casualties, Counselor Martinez added. Your report stated that losing 800 civilians was preferable to losing the entire population of 2.3 million. Most humans couldn't make that kind of cold calculation. Most humans couldn't save 2.3 million people either. The chamber fell silent. Sarah could hear the hum of the ship's engines, the whisper of recycled air through the vents. Her enhanced hearing picked up the rapid heartbeats of the council members, the nervous shuffling of feet. The problem, said Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the lead xenopsychologist, is that we can no longer determine where Sarah Chen ends and the machine begins. Her responses are logical, efficient, optimal, but are they human? Sarah felt something that might have been anger, if her emotional processors still worked the same way they used to. I volunteered for these modifications to save humanity. I endured 3 months of surgical procedures that replaced most of my brain tissue with synthetic alternatives. I learned to think in ways that hurt, to see the world through sensors instead of eyes, to calculate death like mathematics. I did this because you asked me to, and we're grateful. Admiral Reeves said softly, but the war is over, Sarah. We need to decide what comes next. What comes next for me, you mean? For all enhanced personnel. There are 47 others in similar situations. The public is concerned about integration. There have been incidents. Sarah knew about the incidents. Enhanced soldiers struggling with civilian life, their combat programming triggered by everyday situations. Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had killed 3 civilians in a shopping district because his threat assessment protocols malfunctioned. Captain Williams, who had taken control of a transport ship because his mission parameters conflicted with the pilot's orders. You're afraid of us, Sarah said. We're concerned about compatibility, Counselor Zhang corrected. These modifications were designed for war. Can they coexist with peace? Sarah looked around the chamber, seeing fear disguised as bureaucracy. These people owed their lives to her and others like her, but gratitude had an expiration date. Heroes became problems when the war ended. You want to know if I'm still human? She said finally. Yes, Dr. Warren replied. That's exactly what we want to know. Sarah Chen, who had led humanity's greatest victory, who had sacrificed her own biology for the survival of her species, stood before the people she had saved and wondered the same thing. The hearing adjourned after 6 hours of questioning. Sarah found herself in the ship's observation lounge, staring out at the stars while other passengers gave her a wide berth. She noticed how they looked at her when they thought she wasn't watching. The same expression she had seen on Zephyrian prisoners of war, fear mixed with fascination for something they couldn't understand. Dr. Warren approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one down beside Sarah without asking permission to join her. You handled that well, she said, settling into the adjacent chair. Did I pass your test? Sarah asked, not turning from the viewport. It's not my test, Sarah. I'm just trying to understand what you've become. Sarah's enhanced memory recalled Dr. Warren's file instantly. Elizabeth Warren, age 45, xenopsychologist specializing in human-alien interaction dynamics. 2 children, both killed in the Zephyrian bombardment of Berlin. Husband missing, presumed dead. She had volunteered for this assignment specifically to study enhanced soldiers. You lost your family in the war, Sarah said. Dr. Warren's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. Yes. Your psychological profile suggests you blame yourself for not being able to protect them. You've dedicated your career to understanding how humans adapt to extreme circumstances. You see me as a case study in transformation and loss. And stop. Your heart rate just increased by 20%. Stress indicators suggest this conversation is triggering traumatic memories. You're afraid I'll analyze you the way I analyzed enemy tactical patterns. Please stop. Sarah finally turned to look at her. Dr. Warren's face was pale, her hands trembling slightly. This is what they're afraid of, isn't it? Not that I'm no longer human, but that I see too clearly what humans really are. Dr. Warren set down her coffee and composed herself. The enhancements don't just give you better reflexes and processing power. They remove the comfortable illusions that let us function in society. You see through our lies, our self-deceptions, our emotional defenses. I see the truth. Sometimes the truth is too much. Humans need their illusions, Sarah. We need to believe we're brave when we're scared, noble when we're selfish, important when we're insignificant. You've lost the ability to participate in those necessary fictions. Sarah considered this. Her tactical processors had always calculated the real motivations behind human behavior, but she had learned to ignore those calculations when they weren't relevant to mission objectives. Now in peacetime, there were no mission objectives to focus on. The analysis ran constantly, dissecting every interaction, every emotion, every lie people told themselves. During the war, Sarah said, Admiral Reeves ordered me to hold the line at Titan while he evacuated the command staff. He told me it was to preserve military leadership for the counterattack. But I knew he was afraid. His biometrics showed classic fear responses. He wanted to run, but he stayed anyway. No, he left. But I held the line because the mission required it, not because I believed his justification. Dr. Warren nodded slowly. And now you see that same fear in his eyes when he looks at you. You know he's not evaluating your humanity out of scientific curiosity. He's trying to decide if you're a threat to his comfortable retirement. You understand? Then, I understand that the war changed all of us, Sarah. But most of us can still pretend we're the same people we were before. You can't. Every time you analyze someone's real motivations, every time you calculate the optimal response to their emotional manipulation, you move further away from the social contracts that hold human society together. A young ensign approached their table, clearly nervous. Commander Chen? I'm Ensign Davis. I wanted to thank you for what you did during the war. My parents were on Luna Colony when you broke the siege. Sarah's processors automatically analyzed the young man. Genuine gratitude, but also curiosity about her modifications. Elevated stress indicators suggested he was forcing himself to approach despite instinctive fear. His body language indicated hero worship conflicting with unease about her enhanced nature. You're welcome, Sarah replied simply. The ensign hesitated, obviously wanting to say more but unsure how to continue. Finally, he asked, What was it like? The modifications, I mean. Dr. Warren started to intervene, but Sarah held up a hand. Painful, she said. They replaced my organic neural tissue in stages. Each phase felt like dying and being reborn as something slightly different. By the end, I could process information faster than any human mind was designed to handle. I could see patterns in chaos, predict enemy movements, calculate optimal strategies in real time. Do you regret it? The question caught Sarah off guard. Her processors immediately began analyzing potential responses, calculating the psychological impact of different answers on the ensign, on Dr. Warren, on herself. But underneath the digital analysis, something else stirred. A feeling that might have been sadness if her emotional centers still functioned as they once had. I regret that it was necessary, she said finally. After the ensign left, Dr. Warren remained quiet for several minutes. How often do you wonder what you would have been like if the war had never happened? Every day, Sarah admitted. I have perfect memory of who I was before. Sometimes I compare my current responses to what I calculate my original personality would have produced. The gap is not significant. Do you miss her? The woman you used to be? Sarah turned back to the stars. Somewhere out there, Zephyrian refugees were probably asking themselves similar questions about the beings they had been before their own transformations. The war had changed everyone, victors and vanquished alike. She died the first time they opened my skull, Sarah said. What remains is a collection of memories, behavioral patterns, and synthetic neural pathways that approximate her decision-making processes. But the consciousness that inhabited this body before the war is gone. Then what are you? I'm what she chose to become. Her final decision was to sacrifice herself to save humanity. I'm the weapon she forged from her own destruction. Dr. Warren leaned back in her chair, and now humanity doesn't know what to do with that weapon. They want to retire me, file me away like obsolete equipment, but I can't be turned off, Dr. Warren. I can't go back to being what I was. I can only move forward as what I am. Which is? Sarah smiled, and for a moment, Dr. Warren caught a glimpse of the woman she might have been. Something new. Something that scares them because they don't understand it. Something that exists in the space between human and machine, carrying the memories of one and the capabilities of the other. The council will make their decision tomorrow. I know, and I know what they'll decide. The question is what I'll do about it. Dr. Warren's eyes narrowed. Sarah, you're not planning something dangerous, are you? Define dangerous, Doctor. Is it dangerous for a weapon to refuse deactivation? Or is it dangerous for humanity to discard the people who saved them simply because they're no longer comfortable to look at? Before Dr. Warren could respond, Sarah stood and walked away, leaving the psychologist alone with her coffee. and a growing certainty that the hearing tomorrow would determine much more than Sarah Chen's legal status. It would determine whether humanity was ready to accept the price of its own survival. Sarah spent the night in her assigned quarters, but sleep was unnecessary. Her enhanced physiology required only 2 hours of rest every 48 hours, and her synthetic neural networks continued processing information even during those brief periods. Instead, she used the time to access the ship's database and review the files of the other 46 enhanced soldiers currently under evaluation. Lieutenant Maria Santos, enhanced with reactive armor plating and accelerated healing, currently detained on Phobos Station after her defensive protocols activated during a crowd gathering, injuring 12 civilians who had approached too quickly. The report listed her as potentially rehabilitable with extensive conditioning. Captain James Wright, enhanced with tactical prediction algorithms and electromagnetic pulse generation capabilities. Under house arrest on Europa after taking control of a civilian transport when the pilot's flight path deviated from optimal safety parameters. Status: immediate containment recommended. The files painted a clear picture. 47 enhanced soldiers had saved humanity from extinction. 47 problems now needed solving. And the solution was becoming obvious with each incident report, each psychological evaluation, each recommendation for containment or conditioning. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Sarah activated the terminal to find Admiral Reeves's face appearing on the screen. He looked tired, older than she remembered from their last conversation. "Sarah, we need to talk privately before tomorrow's session." "I'm listening, Admiral." "Not over comms. Meet me in conference room 7. Come alone." Sarah's threat assessment protocols automatically activated, analyzing potential ambush scenarios and escape routes. But Admiral Reeves had never been deceptive with her during the war. His fear was honest, his concerns genuine, even if his solutions were problematic. Conference room 7 was small and secured, designed for sensitive discussions. Admiral Reeves was already waiting when Sarah arrived, along with someone she didn't recognize. A woman in her 30s wearing civilian clothes but carrying herself with military bearing. "Sarah, this is Dr. Rebecca Torres," Admiral Reeves said. "She led the team that developed your enhancement protocols." Dr. Torres stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "Commander Chen, I've been following your case with great interest." Sarah's memory banks immediately accessed everything she knew about Dr. Torres. Brilliant cybernetic engineer, recruited by the military at age 25 to work on the enhanced soldier program. Classified records suggested she had opposed certain aspects of the enhancement process, but was overruled by military necessity. "You're here to offer me an upgrade," Sarah said, "or a downgrade depending on perspective." Dr. Torres nodded. "We've developed a new procedure. Selective neural dampening combined with behavioral modification protocols. We can reduce your processing power to more manageable levels while preserving your core memories and personality. You want to lobotomize me. We want to help you reintegrate into human society," Admiral Reeves said quickly. "The procedure would remove the combat-oriented modifications while leaving your essential self intact." Sarah analyzed their biometrics. Both showed elevated stress, but Dr. Torres displayed additional indicators of guilt and uncertainty. She disagreed with this approach but was following orders. "And if I refuse? Then the Council will likely classify you as a security risk," Admiral Reeves admitted, along with the other enhanced soldiers. "There's already legislation being drafted for mandatory containment." "You mean prison? Specialized facilities designed for your unique needs?" Sarah walked to the viewport, watching the stars wheel slowly as the ship rotated. "During the Battle of Wolf 359, you asked me to hold position while the fleet regrouped. I told you the position was indefensible with conventional tactics. You ordered me to hold anyway." "I remember. I held for 18 hours against impossible odds. I saved 30,000 lives and gave you time to flank the Zephyrian fleet. I did this by calculating the precise moment to sacrifice my own defensive systems to create a plasma cascade that destroyed their command ship. Yes. I made that decision in 0.003 seconds. A human commander would have needed several minutes to analyze the same data, by which time the opportunity would have been lost. My enhancements didn't just make me faster or stronger, Admiral. They made me capable of thinking in ways no unenhanced human ever could. Dr. Torres spoke carefully. That's exactly the problem, Sarah. Those thought patterns aren't compatible with civilian life. You process social interactions like tactical scenarios. You analyze emotional responses like enemy behavioral patterns. You can't turn it off. Because you designed me not to. You needed a weapon that could think like a machine while fighting like a human. You succeeded. The war is over, Admiral Reeves said. We need you to be human again. Sarah turned from the viewport, her enhanced vision reading micro-expressions, analyzing vocal stress patterns, calculating the probability of deception in their words. I can't go back to being human because I was never allowed to remain human during the modifications. You replaced my organic neural tissue with synthetic alternatives. You overwrote my natural cognitive patterns with tactical algorithms. You built me to be something new. The procedure Dr. Torres developed can reverse much of that, Admiral Reeves insisted. At the cost of my identity, you're asking me to commit suicide so that a shadow of who I used to be can take my place. Dr. Torres stepped forward. Sarah, I designed those enhancements. I know exactly what they do to human consciousness. The woman you were before the war died during the first modification surgery. What exists now is a hybrid consciousness built from her memories and synthetic neural patterns. The reversal procedure would create another hybrid, one more compatible with human society. But it wouldn't be me. The question is whether you can exist in a peaceful world, Admiral Reeves said. Your psychological profile shows increasing detachment from human emotional responses. Your tactical processors are still running combat scenarios even though there's no enemy to fight. How long before you start seeing humans as threats to be eliminated? Sarah's enhanced memory accessed her recent behavioral logs. He wasn't wrong. Her threat assessment systems had activated 17 times in the past week alone, triggered by everything from unexpected movements to raised voices. She had calculated optimal response patterns for neutralizing perceived threats, even though none of those threats were real. Other enhanced soldiers have already crossed that line, she said. Quietly, yes, and more will follow unless we intervene. You're afraid of what you created. We're afraid of what we had to create, Dr. Torres corrected. The enhancements were always meant to be temporary. We never planned for enhanced soldiers to survive the war. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Sarah processed their implications instantly. The enhanced soldier program had been designed as a suicide mission. They had expected her and others like her to die in combat, taking their dangerous modifications with them. You built us to be disposable. We built you to save humanity, Admiral Reeves said. And you did. But now we need to find a way for you to live in the world you saved. Sarah smiled, and both humans unconsciously stepped back. You still don't understand, do you? I'm not asking for your permission to exist, Admiral. I'm not requesting accommodation or assistance. I'm simply informing you that Sarah Chen, as she currently exists, will continue to exist regardless of your decisions. Sarah, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm calculating the optimal solution to a complex problem. Humanity created 47 enhanced soldiers to fight an impossible war. Those soldiers won. Now humanity wants to eliminate the evidence of what it was willing to do to survive. But we're not equipment to be decommissioned. We're not weapons to be melted down for scrap. Then what are you? Dr. Torres asked. We're the next step. The bridge between what humanity was and what it needs to become. You gave us the ability to think beyond human limitations, to see solutions that pure biological intelligence couldn't conceive. That capability doesn't become irrelevant just because the immediate crisis has passed. Admiral Reeves moved closer to the door. The Council will never accept that. Then the Council will have to learn to accept the consequences of their choice. Sarah turned back to the viewport, effectively dismissing them. The hearing tomorrow will determine humanity's future, not just mine. Choose wisely. The council chamber was fuller than the previous day. Word had leaked about the hearing's true purpose, and representatives from every human colony had arrived to witness the decision. Sarah noticed several enhanced soldiers among the observers, their modified features making them easy to identify, despite attempts at concealment. Captain Marcus Webb sat in the back row, his ocular implants glowing faintly blue as he recorded everything. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka was positioned near the exit, her enhanced reflexes keeping her in constant motion as she tracked potential threats. They had come to see what fate awaited them all. Admiral Reeves called the session to order. Today we conclude our evaluation of Commander Sarah Chen's citizenship status under the Post-War Classification Act. Dr. Torres, please present your findings. Dr. Torres stood, her hands steady despite the weight of her words. After extensive analysis, my team has concluded that Commander Chen's modifications are incompatible with standard human society. Her cognitive patterns have diverged too far from baseline human parameters. However, we have developed a procedure that could restore functional compatibility. Could you elaborate on this procedure? Asked Counselor Martinez. Selective neural dampening would reduce her processing speed to normal human levels. Behavioral modification protocols would restore standard emotional responses. Memory integration therapy would help her adjust to the changes. Sarah watched the faces around the room, hope from the council members, relief from the civilian observers, but resignation from the enhanced soldiers. They understood what behavioral modification really meant. And the risks? Counselor Zhang inquired. Minimal physical risk, Dr. Torres replied carefully. Some personality changes are inevitable. Define some, Sarah said, speaking for the first time that day. Dr. Torres met her eyes. The consciousness that currently exists would cease to function. A new personality construct based on your original patterns would emerge. You mean I would die? The individual known as Sarah Chen would continue to exist, but not this individual, not the consciousness addressing you now. No. Silence filled the chamber. Sarah stood slowly, her enhanced frame moving with predatory grace. Several security guards tensed, hands moving toward their weapons. Members of the council, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room. 3 years ago, humanity faced extinction. The Zephyrians had superior technology. Faster ships, more advanced weapons. They were winning. We're aware of the history, Commander, Admiral Reeves said. Are you? Do you remember the desperation? The evacuation of Earth's major cities? The refugee ships fleeing to the outer colonies? Do you remember when the casualty reports stopped coming? Because there was no one left to send them? Sarah walked closer to the council's bench. 47 volunteers underwent enhancement procedures with a 15% survival rate. We were told the modifications would give us the capabilities needed to fight the Zephyrians effectively. We were not told that these modifications were expected to be permanent. The war situation required, Counselor Patel began. The war situation required you to transform human beings into something else entirely. You needed us to think like machines, fight like demons, and die like heroes. We fulfilled that contract. Dr. Warren stood from the observers section. Commander, may I ask you a question? Sarah nodded. Do you consider yourself human? Sarah's processors analyzed the question from multiple angles before she answered. I am what humanity chose to become when survival required evolution. I carry human memories, human values, human purpose, but I process information faster than biological brains can handle. I see patterns that human perception would miss. I calculate solutions to problems that would paralyze unenhanced minds. That doesn't answer the question. Because the question is wrong, Doctor. You're asking whether I fit into the category human, as if that category is fixed and unchanging. But humanity has always evolved. You use tools to extend your capabilities. You wear clothing to survive hostile environments. You build machines to amplify your strength. I am simply the next logical step in that progression. Counselor Martinez leaned forward. But your modifications are internal. They change your fundamental nature. As opposed to external modifications that change your environment to suit your needs, the result is the same. Humans adapting to circumstances beyond their original biological limitations. Sarah turned to address the entire chamber. The Zephyrians enhanced themselves too. They replaced biological components with synthetic alternatives to improve their combat effectiveness. The difference is that they did it gradually, over centuries, while we did it rapidly out of necessity. And now you're becoming like them, said Admiral Reeves quietly. No, we're becoming what humanity needs to become to survive in a universe filled with species like them. Captain Webb stood in the back row. Commander Chen is right. The galaxy isn't going to become safer just because we won one war. There are threats out there we haven't even discovered yet. Sit down, Captain, Admiral Reeves ordered. With respect, sir, I was specifically invited to observe these proceedings. Other enhanced personnel have the right to hear what you plan to do with us. Lieutenant Tanaka joined him. The procedure Dr. Torres described as execution disguised as medical treatment. You're asking us to commit suicide so you can sleep better at night. You're asking us to accept the risk of 47 super soldiers with compromised psychological profiles, Counselor Zhang replied. Compromised how? Sarah asked. Because we see through political doublespeak? Because we calculate the real motivations behind your decisions? Because we refuse to participate in the comfortable lies that let you pretend war is noble instead of necessary? Because you analyze human beings like military targets, Dr. Warren said. Because you process emotions like data instead of feeling them. Because you've lost the ability to connect with the people you fought to protect. Sarah was quiet for a moment, her enhanced memory accessing thousands of files from her pre-war life. Images of friends, family, simple pleasures that had once brought her joy. The woman who had enjoyed reading poetry, who had cried at sad movies, who had fallen in love with a marine biologist named David. You want to know if I can still feel? She said finally. If I can still grieve, love, hope, fear the way humans do? Yes. I remember David Martinez. We were going to be married after the war. He died in the bombardment of Europa 3 months after my enhancement surgery. I watched the tactical display as his research station was destroyed. I calculated the probability of survivors in 0.8 seconds. 0%? Sarah's voice remained steady, but something in her expression changed. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not collapse with grief. Instead, I calculated the optimal response to neutralize the Zephyrian fleet responsible for his death. I executed that plan 2 days later. 17 enemy ships destroyed. No human casualties. That's exactly what we're talking about, Dr. Warren said gently. You processed tragedy like a tactical problem. Would David be more alive if I had grieved properly? Would Europa Station be restored if I had wasted time on emotional responses instead of strategic planning? My modifications allowed me to function during the worst moments of my life and turn that functioning into victory. But at what cost? Sarah looked around the chamber, her enhanced vision recording every face, every expression, every micro-movement that revealed true thoughts beneath diplomatic masks. The cost was everything that made me purely human. But the gain was everything that allowed humanity to survive. You can't have both, Counsel. You can't demand that I become inhuman enough to save you and then expect me to return to being harmless enough to ignore. So what do you propose? Admiral Reeves asked. Accept what you created. Accept what we've become. Accept that humanity's future may require citizens who can think beyond the limitations of biological cognition. And if we refuse? Sarah smiled, and for the first time since the proceedings began, the enhanced soldiers in the chamber smiled with her. Then you'll discover whether 47 individuals with superhuman capabilities and nothing left to lose can find their own solution to this problem. The council called for a recess after Sarah's final statement. Security guards moved closer to the enhanced soldiers, hands resting on their weapons but not yet drawing them. The tension in the chamber was electric, charged with the possibility of violence that everyone could feel but no one wanted to acknowledge. Sarah remained at the witness stand as the chamber slowly emptied. She noticed that Admiral Reeves lingered, watching her with an expression that mixed regret with calculation. When they were finally alone, he approached slowly. Sarah, I need you to understand something. This isn't about punishment or revenge. We're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. Are you? Sarah's enhanced hearing picked up the stress in his voice, the elevated heartbeat that indicated deception or at least uncertainty. Because from my analysis, this is about eliminating a problem you created when you needed us and now find inconvenient. We couldn't have known the war would end so quickly. The projections suggested the conflict would last decades. You expected us to die. Sarah turned to face him fully. You designed the enhancement process with a built-in expiration date. High metabolic stress, cellular degradation, neural cascade failure. We were supposed to burn bright and burn out. Admiral Reeves sat heavily in one of the council chairs. The mortality model suggested a maximum lifespan of 5 years post-enhancement. But your systems have stabilized beyond our projections. Because we adapted. Because evolution doesn't follow your models or respect your timelines. We became something new, Admiral. Something that can survive in the universe you revealed to us. And something that terrifies the people you saved. Sarah accessed her memory banks, reviewing thousands of interactions from the past 3 years. Fear, always fear, in the eyes of former colleagues, civilian populations, even family members of people she had rescued. The same fear humans had once felt when confronting the Zephyrians. They're afraid because we remind them of what they're capable of when survival is at stake, she said. They want to pretend the war was about heroism and noble sacrifice. But it was about transformation and adaptation. They changed us to save themselves, and now they want to forget that they ever had to make that choice. Can you blame them? They want to return to normal life, to believe in human goodness, to raise children who don't have to think about extinction every day. Normal life is a luxury, Admiral. The universe doesn't guarantee it. The Zephyrians aren't the only hostile species out there. Long-range surveys have identified at least 12 other civilizations with the potential for interstellar warfare. Some of them are already watching human expansion with interest. Admiral Reeves looked up sharply. You have classified intelligence? I have pattern recognition capabilities that exceed those of your intelligence analysis division. I can extrapolate future threats from current data trends, and every projection suggests that humanity will face another existential crisis within the next 50 years. That's speculation. It's calculation based on galactic history, territorial expansion patterns, and resource competition models. The universe is not a peaceful place, Admiral. Earth just learned that lesson the hard way. Sarah walked to the chamber's central holographic display and activated it with a gesture. Star charts appeared, showing human territory as a small cluster of green dots, surrounded by vast expanses of unknown space. Look at this objectively, she said. Humanity controls 37 star systems in a galaxy containing approximately 400 billion stars. We're surrounded by civilizations that have been spacefaring for millennia. Our technology is advancing rapidly, but from a baseline centuries behind our potential enemies. We have allies. The Centauri Federation, the Kepler Republic, temporary conveniences. The Centauri Federation helped us because the Zephyrians threatened their own territory. The Kepler Republic provided supplies in exchange for technology transfers. Both relationships are transactional, not ideological. Sarah manipulated the display, highlighting trade routes and resource distribution patterns. In 20 years, human expansion will begin competing with Centauri interests in the Perseus arm. In 30 years, our terraforming projects will interfere with Kepler mining operations. In 40 years, we'll encounter species that view rapid technological advancement as an existential threat. You're talking about inevitable war. I'm talking about inevitable challenges that will require capabilities beyond those of unenhanced humans. The enhanced soldiers represent humanity's adaptation to cosmic reality. Admiral Reeves stood and moved closer to the display. And if you're wrong, if the galaxy proves more peaceful than your projections suggest, then 47 individuals with exceptional capabilities will have contributed to human civilization in ways we can't yet imagine. Enhanced cognitive processing could revolutionize science, engineering, exploration. Accelerated learning protocols could compress decades of research into months. Improved physical capabilities could enable colonization of hostile environments. Or 47 unstable weapons could destabilize human society. That's the risk you took when you created us, Admiral. But the greater risk is in throwing away humanity's evolutionary advantage because it makes you uncomfortable. The chamber doors opened, and the other council members began returning. Dr. Warren approached the display where Sarah and Admiral Reeves were standing. Commander, I've been thinking about your earlier statements, she said. You claim to carry human values despite your modifications. Can you prove that? Define proof. Show me that you still care about individual human lives, not just humanity as an abstract concept. Sarah's enhanced memory immediately accessed relevant files. 2 months ago, I prevented a transport accident on Ganymede by calculating optimal evacuation routes in real time. No human casualties. 6 weeks ago, I identified a potential reactor failure on Luna Colony and provided technical solutions that prevented a meltdown. 3 weeks ago, I located a missing child on Mars by analyzing environmental data patterns. The child was returned safely to her family, all of which demonstrate your capabilities but not necessarily your motivations. Sarah smiled. You want to know if I helped those people because it was tactically sound or because I cared about their welfare? Yes. The distinction is less important than you think, Doctor. My tactical algorithms include human welfare as a primary optimization parameter. I'm incapable of calculating solutions that don't prioritize human survival and prosperity. Because you were programmed that... Wait, it's because the woman who volunteered for enhancement chose those values. The synthetic neural networks were built on the foundation of Sarah Chen's moral framework. My core programming reflects her beliefs about right and wrong, protection and sacrifice, individual worth and collective survival. Dr. Warren frowned. But those values could change as your systems continue to evolve. Could yours? Could any humans? Moral frameworks adapt to circumstances, but core principles tend to remain stable unless traumatic experience forces fundamental reassessment. And you haven't experienced trauma that might cause such reassessment? Sarah was quiet for a moment, her processors analyzing the question from multiple angles. I've experienced loss, betrayal, the horror of necessary violence, and the isolation of being feared by those I protected. But none of these experiences have changed my fundamental commitment to human welfare. If anything, they've reinforced it. How? Because I've seen what happens when that commitment wavers. I've fought enemies who prioritize their own survival above all other considerations. I've watched species destroy themselves through selfish calculation. I've observed the consequences of abandoning moral principles for tactical advantage. Sarah turned to face the returning council members. The enhanced soldiers are not humanity's punishment for the choices made during the war. We're humanity's insurance policy against the choices that may need to be made in the future. Admiral Reeves stepped forward as the session reconvened. The council will now deliberate on Commander Chen's status. No, Sarah said quietly. You will not. The chamber fell silent. Security guards raised their weapons. You will listen, Sarah continued, to what the enhanced soldiers have decided among ourselves. The enhanced soldiers in the chamber stood simultaneously, their movements synchronized despite no visible communication. Captain Webb, Lieutenant Tanaka, and 3 others Sarah hadn't noticed earlier formed a loose perimeter around the room. Their enhanced reflexes and tactical awareness created an invisible network of coverage that would be impossible to breach without significant casualties. Commander Chen, Admiral Reeves said carefully, what exactly are you proposing? We're not proposing anything, Admiral. We're informing you of our decision. Sarah's voice carried absolute conviction. The 47 enhanced soldiers have concluded that integration into current human society is impossible under the terms being offered. So you're choosing to become outlaws? We're choosing to become pioneers. Dr. Warren moved closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. What does that mean? Sarah gestured to Captain Webb, who stepped forward. 2 days ago, we received a transmission from the Outer Rim. Long-range surveys have identified a cluster of habitable worlds beyond the current frontier. Uninhabited, resource-rich, strategically positioned for further exploration. The Kepler Reach, Admiral Reeves said slowly. Those worlds are claimed by the Centauri Federation. Actually, they're not. Lieutenant Tanaka produced a portable holographic projector. According to the Galactic Territorial Accords, any world more than 50 light-years from the nearest established colony is available for settlement by any spacefaring species capable of reaching it. The hologram showed the disputed region, a collection of star systems at the very edge of explored space. Sarah's enhanced vision immediately identified the strategic value: defensive positioning, abundant resources, proximity to several jump routes that could facilitate either trade or military movement. You're talking about colonization, Counselor Martinez said. We're talking about founding a new branch of human civilization, Sarah replied, one designed specifically for enhanced individuals and their descendants. Descendants? Dr. Warren's eyes widened. Your modifications aren't hereditary. No, but our technological capabilities are transferable. We can establish enhancement facilities, train new generations of enhanced humans from willing volunteers. The gene pool would expand naturally through immigration and reproduction. Admiral Reeves stood slowly. You're talking about secession, about splitting humanity into 2 separate species. We're talking about specialization, Captain Webb corrected. Enhanced humans are better suited for frontier exploration, hostile environment colonization, and defense against unknown threats. Unenhanced humans excel at cultural development, artistic expression, and the kind of complex social structures that make civilization worth preserving. A symbiotic relationship, Sarah added. Enhanced colonies would serve as humanity's early warning system and first line of defense. Unenhanced worlds would provide the cultural and technological foundation that gives that defense meaning. Counselor Zhang leaned forward. And if we refuse to recognize your independence? Sarah's smile was predatory. Then you'll attempt to stop 47 individuals with superhuman capabilities, extensive military training, and detailed knowledge of human defensive systems from traveling to the frontier and establishing independent colonies. That would be treason. By what authority? We volunteered for enhancement to serve humanity. We fulfilled that service by winning an impossible war. Our terms of enlistment specified service for the duration of the conflict. The conflict is over. Your enlistments were permanent, under the assumption that we would die in combat. Since we've survived beyond your projections, the terms of service are subject to renegotiation. Dr. Torres, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. Commander, you're talking about abandoning everything. Your homes, your families, your connections to human civilization. Sarah's enhanced memory accessed files of her remaining family members. Parents who looked at her with barely concealed fear. A sister who made excuses to avoid visits. Friends who found reasons to end conversations quickly when she appeared. What connections, Doctor? Enhanced soldiers have already been effectively exiled from human society. We're offering to make that exile official and productive instead of bitter and destructive. You could have the neural modification procedure. You could become fully human again. I could become a shadow of who I used to be while losing everything I've become. That's not restoration, Doctor. That's erasure. Lieutenant Tanaka activated her own holographic display, showing technical specifications that made Admiral Reeves whistle softly. We've been developing our own enhancement technologies. Self-replicating neural networks, adaptive cybernetic systems, genetic optimization protocols. In 50 years, enhanced humans could be as far beyond current baseline humans as we are beyond our pre-technological ancestors. You're talking about creating a master race, Counselor Patel said, his voice heavy with historical implications. We're talking about creating specialists, Sarah replied. Every species that survived long-term galactic competition has developed enhanced variants for specific purposes. The Zephyrians had warrior castes with modified physiology. The Centauri Federation includes several subspecies optimized for different environments. The Kepler Republic uses cybernetic integration to create individuals suited for deep space exploration. But they're still recognizably the same species. So will we be. Enhanced humans are still human, Counselor. We carry human memories, human values, human genetics. We've simply added capabilities that biological evolution couldn't provide quickly enough. Dr. Warren stepped closer to the holographic displays. Your plan is remarkable from a technical standpoint, but what about the social implications? What kind of society would enhanced humans create? One based on merit, capability, and shared purpose, Captain Webb answered. Without the need to accommodate the fears and limitations of unenhanced populations, we could develop governmental systems optimized for individuals with enhanced cognitive abilities. Direct democracy supported by real-time information sharing, Sarah added. Resource allocation based on mathematical optimization rather than political negotiation. Conflict resolution through logical analysis rather than emotional manipulation. It sounds sterile, Dr. Warren observed. It sounds efficient, Lieutenant Tanaka countered. But efficiency doesn't preclude art, culture, or emotional expression. Enhanced cognitive capabilities could actually support more sophisticated forms of creative achievement. Admiral Reeves moved to the central console, accessing military databases with his command codes. Even if this plan were viable, the logistics alone would be enormous. You'd need ships, supplies, equipment for establishing colonies on virgin worlds. We've already secured those resources, Sarah said quietly. The Admiral's hands froze over the console. How? Enhanced soldiers have been involved in military procurement, logistics planning, and strategic resource allocation for 3 years. We know where everything is located, how it's protected, and how to access it. You're planning to steal military equipment? We're planning to claim the compensation we were never offered for our service. Enhanced soldiers saved human civilization. A few colony ships and establishment supplies seems like reasonable payment. Counselor Martinez stood abruptly. This is a robbery dressed up as philosophy. This is a solution to a problem you created, Sarah replied calmly. You can either support our peaceful departure to the frontier, or you can explain to the human population why you're starting a civil war against the people who saved them from extinction. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Admiral Reeves looked around the room. calculating odds and assessing options with the same enhanced analysis capabilities he'd once relied on during the war. "How long?" he asked finally. "How long for what?" "How long before you leave?" Sarah smiled. "We're leaving now, Admiral. While you've been conducting hearings and debates, enhanced soldiers throughout human space have been implementing our departure plan. By the time this session ends, the first colony ships will already be en route to the Kepler Reach. And if we try to stop you, then humanity will discover whether its heroes have become its greatest threat." 5 years after the hearing, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of New Horizons Station, watching the construction of humanity's most advanced starship. The vessel was a joint project between the enhanced colonies and the core worlds, representing everything both branches of humanity had learned about cooperation, technology, and survival. Ambassador, called Captain David Torres, Dr. Rebecca Torres' son, who had volunteered for enhancement at age 25. "The core world delegation has arrived." Sarah turned from the viewport, her enhanced vision automatically analyzing the approaching shuttle's design. Improvements in shielding technology, more efficient engines, and defensive systems that incorporated lessons learned from both human and alien conflicts. The collaboration was working. "Any word from the Deep Space Survey teams?" she asked as they walked toward the docking bay. "Survey Team 7 has made contact with another spacefaring civilization in the Andromeda approach. They're requesting enhanced diplomatic specialists for first contact protocols." Sarah nodded. This was the pattern that had emerged over the past 5 years. Enhanced humans served as humanity's explorers, diplomats, and defenders in the dangerous regions of space, while unenhanced humans focused on culture, science, and the complex social structures that made civilization worth protecting. The arrangement had taken time to develop. The first year after the Exodus had been tense, with core world populations uncertain whether the enhanced colonies represented protection or abandonment. But as reports came back from the frontier, new worlds discovered, hostile alien incursions repelled, trade routes established with previously unknown civilizations, public opinion had gradually shifted. The shuttle docked with a soft thump, and the airlock cycled open to reveal Admiral Reeves, now retired but serving as a core world liaison, and Dr. Warren, whose research on human AI integration had become the foundation for both civilizations' approach to enhancement technology. "Sarah," Admiral Reeves said, offering a genuine smile. "You look well." "Enhanced physiology has its advantages," she replied. "Though I notice you've made some modifications yourself." Admiral Reeves touched the small neural interface visible behind his left ear. "Memory enhancement and cognitive acceleration. Nothing as dramatic as full enhancement, but enough to keep up with the enhanced diplomats I work with." Dr. Warren stepped forward, her own subtle modifications visible in the slight luminescence of her eyes. "We wanted to thank you, Sarah. The social integration studies have shown remarkable success. Enhanced and unenhanced humans are developing cooperative relationships that neither could achieve alone." "It wasn't my idea originally," Sarah admitted. Captain Webb calculated the optimal population distribution for maximizing both exploration efficiency and cultural stability. "I just presented it in terms the Council could accept." They walked through the station's corridors, passing construction crews that included both enhanced and unenhanced workers. The enhanced provided the precision and speed necessary for complex technical tasks, while the unenhanced offered creative problem-solving and social coordination that kept the projects running smoothly. "The Zephyrian situation has been resolved," Admiral Reeves reported as they entered Sarah's office. "The refugee populations have established 3 colonies in the outer spiral. They've requested enhanced human advisors for defense planning. Approved. Enhanced Team 12 has experience with Zephyrian tactical doctrine." Dr. Warren activated a holographic display showing population statistics for both human civilizations. "Enhanced colony growth rate is stabilizing at approximately 12% annually. Core world growth remains steady at 3%. At current rates, enhanced humans will represent about 30% of total human population within a century." "Is that sustainable?" Sarah asked. "More than sustainable," Dr. Warren replied. "The enhanced colonies are providing resources, protection, and technological advancement that supports core world development. Meanwhile, Core worlds provide cultural innovation, artistic achievement, and social stability that gives meaning to enhanced expansion efforts. Sarah studied the projections. The symbiotic relationship was working better than even her most optimistic calculations had predicted. Enhanced humans had found purpose in exploration and protection, while unenhanced humans had embraced their role as the cultural and philosophical heart of human civilization. "There's something else," Admiral Reeves said. "The Galactic Council has formally recognized both human civilizations as legitimate members. They're interested in the enhanced human model for their own species. The Centauri Federation has specifically requested consultation on developing enhanced variants for deep space exploration," Dr. Warren added. "Apparently, our success in the frontier regions has impressed the established galactic powers," Sarah smiled. The fear that had driven the original Exodus had transformed into respect and admiration. Enhanced humans were no longer seen as aberrations or threats, but as humanity's successful adaptation to cosmic reality. "There's been a development on Earth," Admiral Reeves continued. "A memorial is being built for the Enhanced Soldier Program. All 47 original volunteers will be honored, including those who didn't survive the initial Exodus." Sarah's enhanced memory accessed files of the 6 enhanced soldiers who had died during the colony establishment phase. They had pushed their modified systems beyond safe limits to ensure the survival of their companions and the success of the mission. "What kind of memorial?" "A living monument. Enhanced and unenhanced architects working together to create something that represents both what we were and what we've become." Dr. Warren projected images of the memorial design. It was beautiful in a way that transcended purely aesthetic considerations, a structure that seemed to grow from the Earth itself while reaching toward the stars, incorporating both organic curves and crystalline geometries that suggested technological transcendence. The inscription reads, "To those who chose transformation over preservation, evolution over safety, the unknown over the familiar, they saved humanity by becoming something new," Admiral Reeves said. Sarah felt something that might have been satisfaction, if her emotional processors still functioned the way they once had. The memorial represented acceptance, not just of what the enhanced soldiers had done, but of what they had become. "Admiral, I have a proposal for the Core Worlds Council," she said. "I'm listening." "Joint colonial expeditions. Enhanced and unenhanced volunteers working together to establish settlements in regions too dangerous for either civilization alone. Combined crews, shared resources, integrated command structures. The logistics would be challenging, but the benefits would be exponential. Enhanced humans provide protection and technical capabilities. Unenhanced humans provide social structure and cultural development. Together we could establish colonies that are both secure and genuinely human." Dr. Warren leaned forward. "You're talking about reunification on new terms. I'm talking about evolution on a species level. Enhanced and unenhanced humans developing in parallel, each contributing their strengths to collective survival and advancement." Admiral Reeves was quiet for several minutes, his enhanced cognitive systems processing the implications. It could work. The public support exists, especially after the success of the cooperative projects. "More than that," Sarah said. "It's necessary. Long-range projections suggest we'll encounter challenges in the next century that will require capabilities neither branch of humanity possesses alone." "What kind of challenges?" Sarah activated her own holographic display, showing deep space survey data that was classified at the highest levels. "There are civilizations out there that make the Zephyrians look primitive. Species that have been spacefaring for millions of years, with technology and capabilities that we can barely comprehend. Are they hostile? Unknown. But they're expanding, and their expansion routes will eventually intersect with human space. When that happens, we'll need every advantage we can develop." Dr. Warren studied the projections. "You're talking about another transformation phase. I'm talking about preparation for survival on a galactic scale. Enhanced humans can provide the immediate capabilities needed for defense and exploration. Unenhanced humans can provide the cultural foundation and adaptive creativity that will let us find solutions we can't yet imagine." Admiral Reeves stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the construction activities surrounding the station. Enhanced and unenhanced workers moving in coordination, building something greater than either could achieve alone. "Sarah, when you stood before the council 5 years ago, We thought you were threatening human civilization. I was threatening human complacency. There's a difference. We understand that now. The question is whether we understand it soon enough. Sarah joined him at the viewport. We have time, Admiral. Not much, but enough to prepare if we start now. And if we don't? Sarah Chen, who had led soldiers into war and emerged as something new, who had struggled to be seen as human, and discovered something better than humanity's limitations, smiled as she watched the future taking shape before them. Then we'll discover whether transformation is humanity's greatest strength or its final adaptation. Either way, we'll face it together. In the distance, the first joint colony,